Welcome to the Mike and JD Show YouTube channel. Thank you for being here. I want you to do me a big favor before you check out this clip. I want you to hit the like button. I want you to throw in a comment and make sure you're a subscriber to this channel. And then I want you to share this video with your friends. Help us defeat the algorithm. And then if you like this content and you appreciate this content, please head over to patreon.com/the Mike and JD Show and support the show. That is how we actually get funded to be able to do this. So we thank you very much for being here. And now enjoy the clip. It was we're looking at over 60,000 buys. I think he, with all the different factors in play, with the over 20,000 television buys, I think that he's been able to get. It's looking at like 65,000 television or 65,000 buys in total, because he factors in like there's like an increase when it comes to streaming. Like streaming is typically like, like around 30% higher than television for TNA, and for most wrestling that's on both cable and television and both cable and streaming. So, yeah, so it's looking like it broke the all-time record of 60,000 buys, which was Samoa Joe and Kurt Angle at Lockdown 2008. That record stood all through the Hogan era. In fact, I don't think they ever even got close. So Dixie Carter thought by bringing in Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff, they could probably get back to those 2008 numbers, because 2009 almost kind of fell off a cliff a little bit. Despite the fact that I thought it was a decent year, but it did kind of drop off dramatically. I think they thought by bringing in Hulk Hogan, and I'm going to get into the Immortal faction coming up, because not today. I'm actually going to do a full recap of the Immortal video, because Dre requested it. So I'm like, okay. So I started watching that this morning, but she thought that in 2010, that when they brought in Hogan and Bischoff and RVD and all these big names, that they would be able to get back to that number, and they just never could. Like, no matter what they did, no matter who they brought in, they couldn't get past a certain level. It didn't matter what match they put on television; they always kind of like stayed pretty much the same. Their average, television rating, which was anywhere from 1 to 2 million. They could hardly ever break that. And so that became like a huge issue. And we're seeing it right now in AEW too, when the number one is strong, number two just doesn't matter. No matter what number two does, they're not really going to break over a certain threshold. AEW, popped dramatically whenever they brought in CM Punk, and then inevitably, while he did increase the business, like, quite a bit whenever he first came in, and then there was this big drop off, but it was still better than what it was before he got there. And when we're talking like the pay-per-view business and all of the $1 million gates that they had, the ratings kind of, leveled off, and then they can never get back over that certain threshold. And that we saw that earlier this week with Mercedes Mone. She was able to help pop a house in Boston, which is not her hometown, by the way. That pisses me off. She's from Fairfield, California. She's born and raised in Fairfield, California, the town that I used to live in. But she claims Boston because she was there when she was a teenager, and that's more trendy. Like, obviously, if you're from Boston or Fairfield, right, or if you lived in both places, the more popular answer is going to be Boston. And telling people you're from Boston will get, especially if you're a pro wrestler, will help you draw in the city of Boston, because people that are from Boston are very, they're very proud to be from Boston. They're mass holes. They like to tell you that they're from Boston. They like to brag about being from Boston. It's like a whole thing. It's like a whole culture over there. There's nobody that's like proud to be from Fairfield. Although I happen to like that city. It's like I think like 130,000 people. I lived there for 5 years, bouncing around between Fairfield and Vacaville, which are like sister cities. Just there, it's like right in between San Francisco and Sacramento. And Fairfield is like still technically considered the Bay Area because like you can actually access the Bay from there. It's like on the very much the northeast end of the Bay, but you can actually access, so you can actually get in Fairfield and hop in like the marshlands on a boat, and then you can get to San Francisco. You can't from Vacaville. It's more close to Sacramento for all you geography majors out there. But yeah, so she claims that she's from Boston, and that I was able to help get them a really good house in the TD Garden Arena in Boston, but the rating didn't really do much. It just didn't. And so that's kind of that's what life is like as the number 2 wrestling promotion in the world. What you do almost doesn't matter. Like you can do all this crazy shit and you're never going to get it past a certain threshold. And we learned that with TNA. Once WWF killed WCW, it made it to where no other promotion could really ever threaten them, and I don't know other promotion ever will, just because they're the top dogs. They're the UFC, right? Bellator did some really Bellator pop numbers every once in a while, and they would sell a lot of tickets in certain places, especially internationally, but they could just never come close to threatening UFC, and then they inevitably went out of business. So because they were constantly trying to compete with UFC and signing all the UFC talent. Whenever they would get released, they would give big money to fucking like Benson Henderson and guys like that. So, yeah, I kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but yeah, so they never could get past that lockdown 2008 threshold until Hard to Kill earlier this year in January, and they did it without having television for 2 months prior to it, which makes me question what we're doing on Access. Meaning, like, should I even care? I'm very much at the point where I don't look at the ratings for Access anymore, because I just realized that the ratings for TNA on Access just doesn't matter. It really doesn't, because it doesn't really, like, they could do no viewers, and then obviously, if they do well on social media, they could probably, like, if they can get a good social media campaign, which is what they did for Hard to Kill. Hard to Kill very much was built on social media. It really was, and local marketing to get that many people in there, to break their record gate for them owning, for an Anthem owned promotion. And then on social media, they built it up to where they can do their record pay-per-view business in the company's history, which is incredible considering they had eras where they were doing over 2 million viewers on Spike TV. And the latest rating that I have, which was from a few weeks ago, was like 85,000. Right. And in the fourth quarter, they were doing, there were some episodes that dipped below that because it was mostly recap episodes and best of type of stuff. And that's what you got leading into Hard to Kill. It just didn't matter. They promoted the whole thing on social media and on YouTube, and they highlighted the fact that they're changing from Impact to TNA, and we're bringing TNA back. And there's a lot of people in those rural areas that watched TNA on Spike that kind of missed it. So when TNA went away on Spike, and they just didn't get, they could have, increased their cable package to be able to get them on Destination America or Pop TV or Access TV, but they just never did. And they saw, oh, TNA is back, cool, let me check this out, right? And they probably saw a commercial for it, or they just saw it on their pay-per-view box on the TV guide, and it's like, I bought it, and it's like, oh, hell yeah, let's watch. But it didn't really lead to anybody watching on Access. It just doesn't matter. I'm honestly at the point where I don't know how much money they make from this YouTube Ultimate Insiders. They got me again this week because I wanted to watch Sacrifice and I didn't want to get kicked off of my friend Matt's account. I think I'm almost at the point where it might just be better for them if they just went live on YouTube, and Access, keep it on on Access, but just make it free on YouTube at this point. I think I'm there. I know they practically do that already by clipping the matches, but considering that they did this record pay-per-view with just a social media campaign, essentially, it makes me question the value of even being on Access. Like, do you even really like, should you even care at this point? If you're TNA, like if you can get on a bigger network, obviously. But I think that going like, if you do access and YouTube, like for free on YouTube and load it up with ads and generate the revenue that way, because I think their YouTube business is pretty good. If they did that and people could see like the numbers every week, like how many people are actually watching the YouTube video, and those numbers I would imagine would be pretty high. Would that lead to being able to get a deal somewhere else? I don't know. But and then you can still do the Ultimate Insiders, just like a commercial free version of it. And then you got I mean, people pay for the weekly show, but I pay $5 for the monthly special. That's what I pay for. I think people would still pay the $5 because you get the monthly special to be a part of it, and then like you give them different perks, like all the different shoulder programming. But if you just the main show, just put it free on YouTube. I think that would. I'm almost at the point where like that would be more valuable to TNA overall than the Ultimate Insiders, than keeping it behind the paywall. But again, I don't know. I don't know the business model. I don't know how much money they're making from people paying to watch Impact every week on YouTube or on TNA Plus. I do know that they're pretty happy with the subscriber count. But would you get less subscribers if you made the weekly show for free? I don't know. I don't know. So like they have those numbers, but I think it's worth a discussion if I'm them, just putting it for free on YouTube. And then you still clip the matches, because I think those will still do very good. Clipping each match, clipping each segment. As I'm learning the YouTube business, I think that could absolutely work.